Hey guys, Banjee here, and in this video I need to talk about something that I probably should have talked about a while ago. This has to do with other YouTubers copying and stealing my videos. I specifically need to talk about the tips and tricks videos that I've made and resulting copies from that. But before I can actually complain about it, I obviously need to make it clear what I'm annoyed about. First of all, I am not trying to claim that I own tips and tricks videos. Obviously that is not the case. I also don't have any issue with people reteaching tips that I've posted in my videos. Obviously, a lot of those I didn't even come up with, like in the first video, how I talk about W tapping, S tapping, the pillar jump. Those aren't my techniques. I just found a decent way to teach them to people. So there's nothing wrong with other people also teaching the same techniques. Even for the techniques that I personally made up and then first introduced to the community in those videos, I don't think there's technically anything wrong with other people also reteaching those techniques, even if they learned it from me. Once I put them in the video, they're public, they're out there, and technically anyone could post them if they wanted. Lastly, I want to set that copying and taking inspiration are not the same thing. It only becomes a problem when my work is significantly and accurately reproduced by other people. Now obviously this has been happening since I posted my first tips video, and I promise that there are a lot of smaller YouTubers that have been making like exact copies of this video for the 2 years that it's been up, but I've just never really had a problem with that. It obviously doesn't affect how my video does, and in general it's just kind of flattering. So even when my video gets reposted to other websites or people make their own, cutely bad version of it, it's just not an issue at all to me. I've ignored it this whole time. The reason I have to talk about it now is that much larger YouTubers in the community are significantly stealing sections of those videos and then putting them into their own sponsored and monetized videos, which is extremely scummy in my opinion. So that's why I feel like I need to talk about it now. There's 3 parts of the video that often get copied, those being the thumbnail, the title, and the content. First of all, there's a couple people that quote unquote copy the title, but nobody can really get mad at that. Nobody copies it one-to-one because that's obviously not a good idea. And even though I made up the little parentheses 2023 guide thing, that's fine. The reason I'm taking so much time to clarify all these things I'm not mad about is that you can understand that I'm not really being unreasonable here. I'm just super annoyed at what's about to come. So first of all, let's talk about the thumbnail. The thumbnail on my first tips and tricks video is often the subject of blatant copying and ripoff. This is the original thumbnail. It was made by xEvqn in conjunction with me going over a lot of drafts, ideas, and different revisions of this thumbnail to get this as the final product. And while this is a completely original thumbnail, I want to show you guys the image that was xEvqn's inspiration for making it. This is a tips and tricks thumbnail from Intel Edits. It's separated into those 3 sections and has the tips text at the top. And then using this style, xEvqn came up with his spin on it, which is this thumbnail. That is taking inspiration. He sees a cool idea and makes his thumbnail the same with completely different colors, text font, scenes, and everything. It's a completely different thumbnail. That is obviously not a problem. But since then, the people that take inspiration from this style actually just blatantly copy my thumbnails instead of just taking inspiration. It's even common for people to remake it exactly, which makes no sense to me. Some of these thumbnails are literally direct one-to-one recreations down to the color and everything. They even copy the parts that don't matter at all. For tips 1, xEvqn made the whole thing with different armor colors and it's very saturated. In tips 2, the thumbnail has no armor in it. The reason for this is simply that he forgot. Having armor would probably have been a better choice. It was really pointless to leave it out, yet people still copy this and it makes no sense. In tips 1, this left scene also makes no sense. It's a guy jumping off the side of the bridge next to a ladder. There isn't anything there, it makes no sense, yet people choose to copy it exactly. I just said those last 2 parts as examples that people are directly copying these thumbnails and it isn't some sort of weird coincidence. And then recently, very large YouTubers have directly copied the actual content and structure of my tips video, which is why I decided to make this. But before we get into that, I want to show you guys examples of people actually making their own tips videos after mine, so that it doesn't look like it's impossible to make a tips video without copying me. Here's an advanced tips and tricks video by xEvqn that is the absolutely perfect example. All of the tips in the video are his own explanations, his own list, his own style of editing, and the thumbnail is much more inspired than anything. It has his own scenes, his own text, and has one scene that is probably taking inspiration from my first thumbnail, but not in any problematic way. He even changed the colors of the armor and moved that scene to the other side of the thumbnail. This is a perfectly executed tips video that is both inspired by, but in no way infringes on anything existing. Likewise, this is a tips and tricks video for Bedrock Bedwars by IcyNutella that is equally good. He takes inspiration for the style of thumbnail, but makes it completely his own. All of the content in it is completely original and Bedrock oriented, and he still even gives credit to me and another tips and tricks person, even though all we did was slightly influence the video and he isn't taking anything of ours. He even uses the same intro song that I did, which is really cool. Another perfect example of just taking inspiration and not infringing at all. Then we get to some of the more iffy ones. This is TheLaSteve's advanced tips and tricks video. This is where it starts to get kinda iffy. And Steve is a larger YouTuber than I am, so I feel like he should be held to a much higher standard. When you're a small creator, a lot of the times you don't really understand the do's and don'ts of this sort of space, so it's easier to give a little bit of leniency, but for people that have been doing this for a long time, they know that it's wrong to steal content and still do it anyways. And this is the first video that uses a completely stolen thumbnail. This is an exactly remade version of my two tips video thumbnails together, stealing scenes, placements, text, and everything. All three scenes in his thumbnail are directly stolen from my two, but he does give me credit for it in the description. That's why I said it's kinda iffy, you know? He makes a similar title with the little parentheses and year after it, but also does something kinda unethical, which is editing his title to be the current year, even though he posted this video over a year ago. I don't agree with that. I think it's kinda scummy, but it's not really important here. The actual video itself is basically entirely unique until you get to about the 8-minute mark. His entire section about fireballs is basically just stolen and repackaged from my first tips video. Everything he says is something that I already said in my video, and he really doesn't add a single new thing. He even copies the little section where I go through examples of how to use fireballs. Like, that's what I mean. The entire structure that I chose to explain this stuff is stolen, even though the actual tips themselves aren't something that I should have ownership over, and that's what annoys me. There's a lot of unique info in this video, but overall this is kind of annoying. Even with this though, I still didn't make a video on it. This video was made over a year ago and I'm only talking about it now. In retrospect though, I probably should have been more angry about this when it happened. He literally told me to my face in DMs that he wouldn't recreate the exact scenes and then did it anyway. Then let's talk about this guy named Sicc. He's made 3 tips and tricks videos, and let's look at the thumbnail of the first one. It is an exact recreation of my thumbnail. It's even funnier that he had such a detailed blueprint to try and copy and it still ended up looking this terrible. He also stole the title and changed like 2 words, and even stole all of his commentary for the fireball tip again. I don't know why this keeps happening. He comes up with like 1 new example, but everything else is basically exactly lifted from my video and then just repackaged worse. To give a little credit to this guy though, he's made 2 tips videos since, and each is getting better and better. In his second one, he also copies the thumbnail again, but at least he changes the text to PvP tips. He then also reteaches position selecting, which is a term that I coined in my original video, but again, like, I put it out there, other people can teach it, it's not a big deal, and the rest of the video is completely his own thoughts. And then his most recent video is completely original in terms of thumbnail and content. And now we're getting to the reason that I had to make this video. The 2 ones that were posted by giant YouTubers in this space very recently. I'm going to start with Jooonah's because it's less egregious. Most of you watching probably know who he is. He has like 100,000 subscribers and posts a lot of content in this sphere. This video really annoys me. He copied the intro script pretty significantly that I came up with to try and keep people watching the video no matter their skill level. He also copies the title. He mostly copies the thumbnail, with 2 out of his 3 scenes coming from my thumbnails. And then the content of the video is also kinda questionable. He re-explains Fireball 2-pillar from my second tips and tricks video, but gives it some weird other name. This could be excusable because he's showing it in like a different space, like in Mindmen, and again, the tip's already out there. It's just kinda weird to me. And he even gets one of the tips completely wrong when he tries to explain mid-trading. If we give him the benefit of the doubt, it may seem that he kinda knows it, but just didn't know how to explain it correctly, but at worst case, he doesn't even know what it is and still put it in his tips and tricks video. That's the reason that this annoys me, is this feels like a really rushed video that copies so much stuff from mine, yet is sponsored and monetized and posted onto his much larger YouTube channel. And that just kind of ticks me off a little. To have larger YouTubers lift my stuff, do it worse, and then post it for a lot of money. That being said, I am personally a fan of Jooonah and I really respect him. I've recorded some videos with him and he's one of the nicest and most personable guys in the entire YouTube space here. So I really don't want to send any hate to him. I already DM'd him in advance that I wanted to talk about his video a little bit, but I just want you guys to like separate the art from the artist in this case, where like I think this was a bad decision and a bad piece, but it doesn't really affect my vision of Jooonah. I still think he's a great guy. Now let's talk about the other one, which a lot of you probably knew was coming, and this is the Dewier video that was also posted recently. To preface this though, I want to say that Dewier actually lifts a decent amount of stuff from my channel in terms of like video concepts, video ideas, thumbnails, titles, etc. So this isn't that uncommon, but this is like really bad. First of all, here is the thumbnail he decided to use for the video. Everything about this is stolen from my thumbnails. It looks like they tried to recreate the font as close as possible. It might even be directly the same stolen. And then every single scene is directly stolen from my videos. You can see here on the left, the one he stole from tips 2 has no armor, but the one he stole from tips 1 has the armor from the original thumbnail. Like, I don't know what he was thinking using such a blatantly stolen thumbnail for his video. And then once again, this also steals my intro script with a little bit of extra boasting in it. Then there's a lot of stuff in the video that's his own explanations and his own tips, which is great. And if this was it, I really wouldn't have even made the video, honestly. But then we get to the part that's so egregious that I had to finally talk about this. Somehow, for the third time, my fireball segment from tips 1 is directly stolen and put into his video. And because this one is so bad, I'm actually going to go through it section by section. The first thing he does is directly steal my sentence about why you should care about fireballs, how they're versatile. This is taken directly from my tips video. Then he goes into a little mini montage, which is also directly stolen from my video. In my video, I showed 4 different little examples of why you should care about fireballs, and put them in this little mini montage. I usually cut directly from one clip to another in my videos, but here I chose to do a little fade to make them more cohesive. Everything about this is directly stolen by Dewier and put right into his video. He does exactly 4 examples, same number, and for some reason copies the little fade between the clips as well. He does have different examples of why you should care, but that doesn't save it. Again, the tip itself is not the part I'm annoyed about, it's that my video is being stolen by a larger creator. Next, he transitions to talk about how they also deal true damage, which is structuring stolen directly from my video. Tip 1 being about fireballs, all these examples, and tip 2 going into true damage. He then does the only thing that isn't stolen directly from my video, which is talking about how it's helpful to zoom in before throwing a fireball, which, congratulations, was not stolen from my video. And then finishes by copying my warning about not wasting them just like Steve did. So overall, 4 out of the 5 sections of this tip are stolen directly from my first tips video and put directly into his own sponsored and monetized video as a creator 4 times larger than me. This actually pisses me off. My original tips video is actually not monetized and has never been monetized. I haven't earned a single dollar from that video directly because what it was supposed to do is just be the best video possible to help people learn and to also grow my YouTube channel into something substantive. So the whole thing is just layered with copyrighted songs that make it ineligible for monetization, because that's what I thought I could do to make it the best video, the specific songs that I wanted to use. That's why I felt I had to talk about it. This is pretty scummy in my opinion. I really don't want any lasting drama from it. There isn't really any lasting drama to happen for me saying this. I'm just sick of like pretending I don't care about it. It is pretty annoying when these larger YouTubers steal my hard work and structuring. I take a lot of pride in the work I do to structure these videos to best explain the tips to people watching. That's something that I feel I'm really good at, is coming up with the most effective way to explain these things. So it really sucks when people explain the same thing and then just copy exactly what I did and my own structuring that I'm actually proud of instead of doing it themselves. So anyways, yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about this. I don't think it really matters that much at this point. It's unlikely that any of the copied videos will ever do better than my actual tips one, and it's not like they'll have the same effect on the Bedwars space. So like, I'm not really losing anything, and that's why I haven't talked about this before, but I'm finally annoyed about it enough to just have to say something. At the end here, I want to shout out Crispy Time, who I've seen post a lot of different tips videos catered toward the game sense side of Bedwars, he's doing his own spin on Bedwars tips to great success. It's not like everything about this game has already been taught and you have to copy. You can still totally make your own content and do really well with it. This is sad to say out loud though, but this sort of like copying culture really does make me kind of nervous to post the game sense guide. I genuinely do think it's both the best tutorial ever made on Bedwars and probably the best tutorial that ever will be made on it. And it just feels kind of like yucky to think about putting it out there just for other people to repackage the information and then put it into meta-edited videos where they have like forced subtitles and ask you for subscribers and sponsorships and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. Because the whole point of the video would be making it like Tips 1, to just be as helpful as possible, regardless of revenue rate or click-through anything. It would just be like an hour-long video of the best information I can give. Anyway, that's enough for this video. Thank you to anybody who cared long enough to hear me talk about this. It is pretty frustrating, so thanks for understanding. And there really isn't any need to like send hate to creators that do this. It doesn't hurt though to call them out in the comments and say something about how, hey, this is just copied, but like, please don't send any real hate. It's not really worth it for stolen Minecraft tips. Anyways, hope you guys have a good one. 30K soon. Exciting. See you guys later.